Welcome back, my awesome people. Today, I am honored to be here with Mark Story. Now, Mark Story is a construction veteran with over 37 years of experience leading complex projects and building high-performing teams. Now, he has worked on high-profile projects like the Idaho State Capitol, federal data centers, semiconductor plants, and major sports arenas. And Mark combines hands-on leadership, strategic planning, and coaching to help contractors turn plans into results while growing people into leaders. And he also has his own business, and he also has multiple ideas that are coming down the pipeline, which we will definitely get into. So please stay until the end, and you will definitely get amazing, amazing knowledge. So Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
I appreciate you being here with me today. I know it's a busy time of the year, right after the holidays. I hope you had a great, great holidays. But let's just get right into it. So, Mark, can you just tell us, start from the beginning? Tell us what drew you into construction, especially working in it for over 37 years. And can you tell us about your journey into construction and how it all began?
Yeah, sure. Thanks again for having me on. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I grew up in Michigan, not from a real wealthy family or anything like that. So we everybody worked hard and everyone was expected to work hard. And I started out as a laborer, early teens. And as soon as I got out of high school, I took a job at some residential concrete company and just continued to grow. Like I said, I was a laborer digging ditches. I was a mason tender for a while. I did ironworking for a while. I was lucky enough. I actually worked for Mid Michigan Construction, and they're not around anymore. But they allowed us to. We got to work in lots of different scopes and learn what we wanted to do. And I think it's really important, especially nowadays. People coming out into business and graduating from high school or college, like trying to figure out what they want to do for a living. And it was really good for me to be able to be in a bunch of different trades at different times. And then I started my own concrete business at 24 and ran that for 15 years and decided that I wanted to build a football stadium. And so we sold the business, and I was traveling a bunch. I wasn't seeing my family. Kids were young. At one point in time, my son called me and said, I think he was 5 or 6, and he said, "Dad, if I didn't have a picture of you, I wouldn't know who you were." So I was like, my wife's like, "Okay, what are you going to do?" So we sold the business, and I went to work for Hunt Construction, a general contractor. They're now AECOM Hunt. They're the largest sports builders in the world, I believe. And that's when we did the Idaho State Capitol, and I've been a general superintendent ever since. And I continue to work in like Berkeley, doing the law school. We went to Minneapolis, did wind farms, did a lot of healthcare work, data center work, and semiconductor, as you said, some aviation work, and really saw a gap in our industry with a lot of young people coming out of college, bullet smart, but they needed some real practical training. So that's why we started CCS. So.
I mean, I think that is a resume full of accolades, full of achievements, because I mean, I'm sure there are some diehard people who are in construction, are in architecture that would love to have worked with those projects. And so because you've worked with such a different array of projects, from sports arenas to data centers, how do these different strategies differ? Sometimes, when people say construction, there's usually a specialty and they kind of stick to that specialty. But how were you able to work on such a vast array of projects? Because I'm guessing you have a vast array of skills as well.
So, like in comparison, so doing the Idaho State Capitol, those historic renovations take a different look at things, and I don't know if it came through, but when I was young, every house my parents lived in, there was a renovation, right? We did all of our own work, from redoing real hardwood floors to plaster to drywall to all kinds of different things, right? So when you go into a historic renovation, you got to be, they're really important to that public, right? To that, like the Idaho State Capitol, that was an experience I'll never forget. The local people here in Idaho are so proud of that Capitol. Excuse me. You got to bring that forward with you, right? So you got to be really careful, um, and you need to. You get an opportunity in a historic renovation. People are working in something that hadn't been updated for, I don't know, 50, 60 years, right? So when those folks get to come back to work to this newly renovated, freshened up, beautiful space, like you're making a huge impact on their lives, the daily lives of coming into a new shiny office, right? Um, if you go to like a sports project, the neat thing about that, and we're actually doing the USF football stadium right now in Tampa, is that is a mix of um, high-end finishes, like the locker rooms in a sports facility. That's what it's all about, and the field, right? And then you have your club levels, and then there's a bit of an industrial part of that too, with mechanical rooms and the managers, like how football gets played on either Saturday or Sunday is all behind the scenes. Those managers and hundreds of people that get the uniforms cleaned, pack everybody up for a travel game, all that stuff. So it's a little bit different. And it has different finishes, right? Fields are very finicky. They've got to meet certain standards. And then when you go to, like, say, healthcare, I worked in the Mayo Clinic. Mayo is a different hospital. They have very high standards. They have very high finishes. And the people that you work with there are absolutely the top in the industry, in their healthcare industry. So you get a mix of really smart, really high-end finishes, and hospitals have a different, a heavier MEP side. That, for those that aren't in construction, that's mechanical, electrical, plumbing. That's what makes the building function, right? And there's also a heightened awareness of what's going on in that building. They're saving lives. And so when you think about what you're actually doing, what the end outcome is on all these projects. So if I go back to the state capitol, you're refreshing something that is historically important to that city and that state. And then you build a football stadium. People get to take their kids to an amazing game, right? We all know how important our football teams and basketball teams are to our families and friends. And a lot of times kids will be able to go to, like, I got to go to one University of Michigan football game when I was 10. I'll never forget it. And then when you go to a healthcare, I mean, you are, especially if it's a renovation or an addition to, you have got to be so careful not to interrupt what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. Lives are on the line, right? I mean, if you interrupt power during an operation, that could be life-changing, right? So it is really, like, putting on a different lens for every one of these projects is really important to be able to do.
You know, that is actually the best way of saying it. Every building, every project that you work on or work with has not only pros and cons, but it means something more than just the job itself. Like the historical buildings, you know, that is a piece of the history of the town or the city. Then you have the sports arenas, you're creating memories. Then, of course, you have things like the medical places, right? Where it could be life or death because of a power outage or maybe a plumbing issue or something happened. So that was very well put, Mark. That was actually very well put, which I have never heard in any way. And I'm sure a lot of my viewers right now are probably, you know, rethinking about every place that they've been to and what the people working behind the scenes had to do to make sure this building or this project was not only successful on a physical level, but what else does it mean to the people that are around that building or around that project all the time. Thank you for that. So let's just take a little pivot and let's talk about your endeavors. You did start commercial construction services that you did mention a little bit earlier on why you started it, right? You're taking these fresh graduates or the younger people getting into the industry and giving them a platform and giving them a method to, be mentored. Can you elaborate more on that? On what gap were you trying to fill and what does your firm do, your construction firm?
Yeah. So I've been wanting to do this for quite some time and had been thinking about it. And I was on a very large project for a year or so, and it was I want to be careful. It was really frustrating. Amazing project to be a part of. Like, this is changing America, to be honest with you. And it was so frustrating being a subcontractor and to see how this project was run, and I don't want to throw stones at anybody or talk bad about anybody, but at a certain point, like, I felt really unsafe on the project, right? So on a good project, you have a weekly, what we call a trade partner meeting, where everybody comes together. The general contractor is their job is to make us all successful, right? Clear the roadblocks, and listen to what everybody has to say. You don't always win, right? All your arguments, but to bring us together for a common goal, right? Hit a milestone in the schedule, or and share with what are the next 3 or 4 or 5 milestones we got to hit, and how do we work together? And they weren't doing that, right? And it was basically once a month on a Saturday, everybody come in with your plans, and then we'd spend an entire day, the highest paid people in the construction industry in the world. And we might have 100 people or 200 people in there. And all of our plans were just running into each other, just bouncing off of each other. And then we were sent away to try to build new plans, but they never brought us all together to collaborate. And I worked with them quite a bit on how we could do this and how we could do this better. And it was so frustrating. And I finally just said, I'm done. I'm passionate about this. I would hold coordination meetings on the project myself with all the different trades. And we ended up finishing some of our scopes of work 2 months early because we collaborated and everybody got a chance to get their work done, right? So I said, man, this is really what I want to do. And I'm a close friend of Jason Schroeder, which owns Elevate Construction, and he's got a big YouTube channel and all this stuff. And we're both lean builders, right? And we started on our lean construction journey about the same time, about, I don't know, 15 years ago. And we said, man, let's change the industry. Let's work together. What they bring is all this software intact, and planning and scheduling. And then I partnered with Debbie Lundberg, and she's a professional coach. And then so I kind of am in the middle, kind of bringing all this planning and scheduling and collaboration and long-term planning view to make projects successful. And Debbie's, like, her coaching and how she teaches us to coach, we just bring it all together for success. And it's really fun to go in and see these teams grow and prosper and start hitting their dates.
That is I think the number one problem with a lot of businesses or even companies, because when you have all these bright minds and geniuses put together in one room, a lot can happen, right? A lot of great things can happen, but then
Yeah.
if you don't bring them back again to collaborate again, it's just, okay, go off on your own and kind of, do it on your own. There's not much progress that happens. So you know what? I think your services is definitely needed, because I think the more collaboration we have, the more that we can get further in whatever industry that we are trying to work in. And so, for example, some of the projects that you've worked on, I'm sure there has been not only headbutting with among, other workers, but I'm sure even the other shareholders, right? For example, the people who hired you, maybe they have a certain idea, but due to safety or due to regulations, you might say, well, we have to do it kind of this way. What happens when you bump heads with the maybe the person that hired you or other people involved that are not your workers?
Yeah. So, uh, for a current client that I'm working for, I'll give you an example. The president of the company and I are very much aligned. Um, very much want people to be successful. Um, very much want to hold people accountable, right? Uh, and I guess to back up a little bit, the folks that we work with, we stress we want to work with prosperity minded clients. And what that means to us is invest for today into your people. We definitely want you to be successful today, but understand that we're teaching discipline, we're teaching a different view on things as far as how to plan, how to pull plan, why to do those things, how to hit these milestones. And then we're teaching them to be builders for the future, right? So, it's no different than investment. Put some money in the bank now, and you'll prosper from it in the future. So those are the folks that we work with. Now, we do have challenges, and what I share with people is that I'm here because I care about your folks immediately. Like, I put all my trust out there. I throw it all out there day one. I'm not holding anything back because I want them to trust in me and what help they need as early as possible. But when people don't buy in and they're not willing to do the work, I also share with them that this is not only your brand, but this is mine. I'm here because I want you to win and I want you to be the number one builder, not just your company, but you as an individual. And if you're not willing to do the hard work, I'm not going to allow you to bring my brand down with you.
I think that's what a lot of people forget, right? It's a two-way street. It means that if I mess up your stuff, that means my name, my brand is on the line as well. And I think that's what a lot of people need to understand when they hire others, especially those that have a really, really good reputation. And so now, not only looking ahead, but also looking in the past, how has the world of construction, the world of carpentry, contracting, has it changed in the past 10 to 20 years? And then looking forward, where do you see your firm in the next, say, 5 to 10 years?
That's a really good question. So we've talked about this a lot in our industry. So back when the bubble burst in 2008, the construction industry was really struggling, right? I don't know if you remember the housing boom and all that good stuff, right? A lot of people, experienced people, left the industry. They either retired or they had to find something else to do. And so we saw a shift, right? And then as construction came back, a bunch of younger folks came back or came into the industry, and a lot of those seasoned professionals were gone, right? So I came up through the trades with, I'm going to call them old timers. They taught me how to do carpentry skills, right? They taught me how to do concrete skills. They taught me a lot of that stuff. And so I was really lucky in that fact. But all the people that there was a much smaller group of those people now to train all these people that are flooding back in our industry. We are right now, our industry is in a lot of areas moving extremely fast, right? With all of the AI, the data centers, semiconductor, all of that. But there, with those buildings brings a ton of other support buildings, right? You can't build a semiconductor plant and not have ancillary buildings being built all around to support that huge semiconductor plant. Our industry now is what I see is, and there's this like negative tone sometimes of this generation or that generation of, they're not hardworking or they're not this or they're not that. And I've just got news for everybody that there's been high performers and low performers in every generation, right? What I see now, which is really important that I think people take a hard look at, is our young folks coming into our construction industry are bullet smart, smarter than I've seen in a long time. And a lot of it has to do with software and being, the computers and all of that has evolved, right? I think I got my first iPad in like 2012 or 10 or 12 or something, right? Um, Now the way we schedule work, all the different softwares, Procore, all those different things out there, these folks get it right now. They were born with an iPad in their hand. They're very fast. They're very savvy to what works and what doesn't work. What we need to do is we need to spend time teaching them to build, letting them make mistakes, not too big of mistakes, and grow them to be thinking. In construction, we have this vision of we're always looking at our toes. We've got to start looking into the future. Like, where do we want to be in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, right? And that's one of the things that at CCS, that's what we focus on. I hope I answered your question.
No, you
If I
definitely
did, please.
did. It actually goes right into my next question is what advice would you give to a young individual who's entering the construction industry today? You did mention definitely be tech, they're tech savvy, they're using the
Yeah.
AI, they're using the technology, and we'll definitely
Yeah.
get into technology in a little bit. But what will be some practical advice? Maybe somebody's almost graduating or they just graduated, and what advice would you give them to get into this industry?
If they're in college, I would, or even high school, like, and our one of the things in our industry I think is great. What I've seen in probably the last 10 years is that we are getting out and talking to young people that are in their junior high and high school ages. And uh, I watch Mike Rowe a bunch, right? And we need like just vast numbers of plumbers and electricians and mechanical folks and carpenters like across our industry, across our country. And it's not just building buildings, it's building ships, it's building all kinds of these things, right? And if you think about like a shipyard is full of welders, right? Well, we also have a bunch of welders on our construction jobs, right? And they have carpenters in those. If you've ever been on a ship, a cruise ship, or anything like that, it's a traveling building, right? Um, so I would get out early if you're interested in a trade, high school, even junior high school. If there's some way that you can get into a welding shop or welding class, I'm not saying you got to stay there forever. Like I did, I took welding in school, and then started my own business just a few years later, and then became a general contractor and stuff like that. So get out and start experimenting in different trades. Um, on your summers off, see if you can get in with different construction companies. It's 2 or 3 months, right? Get out and experiment what it is to be a concrete guy. Dragging concrete is hard friggin' work, but it is really rewarding when you're done, right? We are at a deficit of electricians and plumbers and mechanical folks all over our country. Get out and just see what you can do as intern or work in their shop, right? I mean, one great way to learn how to do mechanical work is every one of these mechanical contractors has a shop where they're prefabricating products to send to different job sites, right? So I would experiment early. If you're in college, I would strongly suggest that you figure out a way to intern with some different companies, right? Myself, I've worked for maybe four major general contractors. Every one of them have great things about them. Um, and it's no different than relationships, right? You run into people that you like, but there's some things you don't like about them, right? Businesses are the same way. Figure out what works for you, and don't worry about having experience. You're going to get it. Just get out there, stay curious, ask questions, be willing to work hard, and you'll figure it out. And remember, you're young, right? So you've got time, right?
I
So
think I think that was perfectly said because a lot of people watching this are, my demographics is, from about 17, 18 to about 45. So a lot of people are definitely either just graduating, graduated, or still in school. But at the same time, I think North America in itself definitely is requiring these trades. Every time I ask people what do they want to be, they always say a YouTuber or something of that nature, and they're not really thinking that the best jobs, the most lucrative jobs, the jobs that's easy to climb the ladder if you put in the hours in. That is the trades, and I see a lot of people just trying to get, I guess, the easy way out, but knowing that the easy way out, you got a gazillion people vying for those spaces. When in the trades, right now there's a shortage. Get in there, put your time in. And like here in Canada, we have a major shortage. And I think that's also in the United States. I think I was talking to Eric Pacman actually the few weeks ago, and we were talking about infrastructure inflation, where we don't have enough workers to actually build projects or even get involved in projects. So we'll actually talk a little bit about that in a bit. But let's take a little pivot here and let's talk about actual details of jobs. So when someone calls you up and says, "Hey, Mark, we have a project that we need a rebuild of something," and you get to the location, what is the first thing you look at, or what is the first thing you do when you get to the site?
So there's a couple different things. So what I think about when someone calls me is the project in trouble? Is it a recovery project? Have they reached out early enough before the team got into trouble? Um, what I typically do is I will go to a job and I call it look, listen, and feel. I want to assess the team. I want to spend sometimes it's a couple days, sometimes it's a couple weeks, depending on the size of the project and the team. And I'm looking for the health of the project. And most of the time, you can tell the health of the project by walking into the job trailers. You can feel the mood of the team. Is the office clean and organized, right? Do they have their planning uh, up on the wall, right? When I walk on the job, can I walk up in the job trailer and look, do they have a logistics plan posted that they're sharing where the roads are, where their gates are? How do you get to the job site and how, safely? Um, I'm looking at their schedule. Does it look realistic? I'm looking at the size of the staff. Do they have too many people or do they not have enough people? I'm also talking to the trades. What's working well, what's not? And a huge watch out for me is cleanliness of the job site. Uh, Safety is paramount to me. And while I know that I can walk on any job anywhere and find something that needs to be repaired. It might be minor, it might be major, right? And anybody that's been in the industry as long as I have should be able to do that, right? And by saying that, that doesn't mean I'm the smartest guy in the room because I'm certainly not. It's just you know what to look for after you've been doing this for a long time. But if the job site is not clean, material is not organized, trades are going to be working where it's comfortable for them to work, not necessarily on the critical path items that we need them to work on. Um, and listening to team members, right? Listening for what's not being said, as much as body language and things of that nature that will tell you everything you need to know in a very short amount of time.
Cleanliness really is the big factor. I would kind of compare it to, for example, a full-scale kitchen in an industrial kitchen where if you have knives everywhere, if you have dirt everywhere, rags everywhere, unsafe sanitation, it's just obviously hazardous safety concerns, of course. And I mean, nail on the head right there with the safety concerns and the cleanliness. And I think a lot of people oversee that. The main thing that a lot of people have been talking about is the planning, because usually whenever a project starts, they have the great, graphics, they got the data, they show you all the pictures, but then they don't really show the public the actual fine details of how things are done. So what are your thoughts on transparency? Do you think that when a project is, especially when it's a public project, a project that could
Mhm.
take up, tax dollars, it could take up
Mhm.
public time, public highways, when those projects are beginning, do you think transparency should be given to the public where, okay, this is what we're thinking, and then the public can say no or yes? Do you think there should be some voting when it comes to public dollars, or what are your thoughts on that?
I'm working on my taxes right now, and I would say yes, 100%, right? We should have a say in where we're spending our tax dollars and how it's going to happen. And especially now there's all kinds of big infrastructure jobs that need to be had here in the United States. We're behind on infrastructure, and I'm all about that getting done and getting done right. But yes, it should be very visible about where we're spending it. And if there are going to be major changes, now, you know, big federal projects have a history of this. You take a 4-year job and it takes 7 or 8 years to finish, right? And that seems ridiculous to me, especially when you see the size of the teams and the general conditions paying people. And we should pay people well. I'm all about that, but the amount of money to set on a job for another 4 years, why? How did we miss 4 years worth of work, right? Like,
Well, what we
what's
call it
going on?
here is we call it milking it, because sometimes, you'll be driving around and you're like just seeing construction workers just kind of hanging out, not really
Mhm.
doing much. And you're just like, oh, so, this is probably going to take another year. Because there are plenty of videos when you look at the east side, the eastern side of the world, like India, China, Africa, the Middle East, where projects are done pretty much either on deadline or way before the deadline. Um,
Yeah,
Here, I don't know what they call it in the States, but here in Canada, we just say, oh yeah, they're just milking it, right? They're using our tax
yeah,
dollars. They can, roll over. Oh, sorry, we had a water main break here. Let's push it another 6 months, and now you have 6 months of people getting paid. So I think it could go either way, I guess. But what is the role of technology? Like, I mean, this shouldn't even happen now that we are in the age of technology, especially when it comes to, pre-planning, when it comes to understanding, okay, can this be really done in 5 years, or should we actually say seven? So with the
yeah.
technology that we have these days, what are your thoughts on that? Because I know 20 years ago, 30 years ago, technology was kind of missing in the world of trades and construction, but now it's being used left, right, and center, especially with drones. Now you can see overhead, and you have all these amazing technologies. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on the relationship between construction and technology, especially in the next year, 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah. What I would say is that I haven't been on a construction project yet that hasn't had some kind of impact, right? Whether it was caused by Mother Nature, which none of us can control. Um, I had a project not too long ago that there was a very highly protected duck bank to a federal facility that no one knew about. And a duck bank is power. It's underground, power, telecom, data, whatever you want to call it, underground. And it was hit. Well, it delayed the project, and it was kept secret for a reason, right? Which I agree it needed to be.
And that's what everybody's kind of thinking. And I think you mentioned it
Yeah,
earlier that the planning really needs to be solid before even
yeah,
putting shovels to the ground, because things can happen. Of course, you have the natural disasters or things that are
yeah,
definitely
yeah,
out of your control. But then
yeah,
things when it comes to worker hours or size of project, the budget, all of those things definitely need to be planned out. So
yeah.
now let's take a little small pivot and talk about the labor shortages in not only construction and trades, but also in a lot of sectors under this umbrella. So North America, especially Canada and United States, they've been doing a lot of immigration restrictions.
Mhm.
Canada, especially to I think 2024, they had about 500,000 temporary residents. Now they've cut it down to about 320, 330,000. In the United States, of course, now you have this big shift in removing immigrants or illegal immigrants. Um, A lot of people that I have spoken with said that there has been an impact in the world of construction, the world of trades, that world of services because of that. What are your thoughts on that? I know infrastructure inflation, as we mentioned earlier, is when you don't have enough people. Of course, you have materials rising in cost, but you don't have enough people actually not only have the skills but also the willingness to do the actual building or actual job. So what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on not only immigration in the United States and how has that impacted your industry?
Well, I will tell you that I have a number of friends that are from Mexico or South America, um, and the hardworking, great folks. I just spoke to a good friend of mine that's from Venezuela about these things, just asking their thoughts. Um, and most of the time, the people that have come here and done it, legally and got their citizenship. I mean, I have a dear friend of mine that's from Ethiopia, and his wife is as well, and she just got her citizenship just about a year ago. And I'll tell you what, these are some of the greatest people I've ever worked with in my life, and I feel like for me and to know a little bit about me, both of my kids, my wife and I's son and daughter, are both from South Korea. And we adopted them when they were infants, 4 and 5 months old. And I'm all for people coming here to work hard, but be citizens, right? I know it takes some time, and I think we should allow them the time to do it right. I've another one of my great friends is he's from Minnesota. His wife's from Costa Rica. He went there to work and met his wife, and now they have two great kids. And she just got her citizenship less than a year ago, and they're just fantastic people. So I think we need to. I mean, none of us want bad folks here, right? Uh, I don't think any country wants bad folks here, but I can tell you that we just had a job shut down last week or partially shut down because there was a rumor that ICE was going to show up. And these people are hardworking folks. And I think we need to make it possible. I do think that they need to be citizens. And I think there's also one of the things I would say about new generations, and you mentioned it earlier, they want to be YouTubers and stuff like that, which I got nothing against that, right? But you could go out and be an electrician and make six figures and, provide a great life for your family. And we need more Americans um, being proud of being craft workers. I mean, you're building America, right? I mean, I work on jobs with thousands and thousands of people, and they show up with great pride every day, and that's the amazing part. And then you get to drive by that football stadium or that massive data center, or take your kids to the hospital that you built. Like that needs to come back to America, and that's who I grew up with. I mean, when I grew up, you were either going to be in the auto industry or be a construction worker or a police officer, fireman, right? Now there's just so many new jobs out there that I never thought of. But construction is a great industry. Listen, it has provided me a wonderful life for my family. And you meet the relationships that I have all over the country, from laborers. I just had a gentleman reach out to me yesterday that I worked with, and he had a very tough upbringing and made some major mistakes, but he turned his life around and was a laborer. And he just reached out to me yesterday, updating me on how well things are going, and he's changed his job. And I mean, that's amazing stuff.
It's very reflective on. I can really see that you really are passionate about this because immigration, it is a sensitive topic, but at the same time it's also when you see that hardworking individual or that hardworking family, and you know you're like, oh, you're so close, you're almost there, you're almost there. And then
Yeah.
when they finally get it, it's the most happiest thing, because now they're not going to be feeling like, am I here or am I not here? They're not in limbo
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right, where, the future individuals, the future kids, the future graduates should not only be thinking about, the fun and pop stuff, but also things that are building your nation, building your city, building your towns, because the trades, I have a lot of friends that are in trades, especially HVAC, plumbing,
Mhm.
in that world, and they have their own businesses. They're making upwards of, 200,000-300,000 a year, and I'm like, I got in the wrong profession. And I think that the trades really is the foundation of anything, right? Like, how proud, as you said, right? You're driving by, you're like, yep, I had a hand in that stadium or in that project right there, or even in your own home, right? You're like, hey, I was able to fix that without calling, someone else. And
Yep.
I think the trades really is not only the future, but I think once people understand that the trades is not, a dirty job. A lot of people think, oh, I'm getting my hands dirty. I mean, technically, this is how this nation was built. You get your hands dirty, you put in those hours, elbow grease, and you build what you need to build. So we did talk about immigration with the infrastructure inflation, but now let's talk about the tariffs and how it's making things crazy expensive. So of course we have things like steel, aluminum, specialty materials. Trump says one thing, boom, those skyrocket the next day. What does that look like on the construction site, not only for you, but for the companies that you work with? And what does that just mean in general?
It's a really good question, right? I know of, and I know of one project that was canceled um, this year or in 25 over tariffs. I know that there's probably many more because I mean, one of my clients has over 200 projects going right now, right? Hopefully that answers your question, but I do know that tariffs are driving up prices on different things. I don't stay really close to it, so I'm not certainly not educated enough to know, but a dear friend of mine did have a project cancel that impacted his business last year
So I guess
because
it
of
just
tariffs.
depends. So I guess it just depends on pockets of different sectors and how much you actually need. Because I know there's like certain thresholds that you have to
Mhm.
meet to bypass it and so on. But to kind of just stay on that a little bit, do you think that in the future of not only construction trades or even just buying materials, do you think that a lot of companies are going to start just keeping it within regional and not trying to go global? Because right now the tariffs are, big talk, but if it becomes permanent, that can kind of shrink the world and not have countries want to deal with one another because of those tariffs. What are your thoughts on that?
But I think that that's a real possibility, but I think it's also forcing some conversations and about number one. I mean, I come from the auto industry, a family being like we build it here, right? I was really quite frustrated. Family members lost jobs. My mother, right, in the 70s and 80s, and it made it very difficult on us because jobs went over to other countries where it was, and I was actually asked if I would travel uh, to rebuild my mother's factory in Mexico, and my mother was out of a job, and I turned it down, right? Um, and so I do think that there is a real need for us to be building uh, and manufacturing in our countries to protect us long term um, and keep a viable business here. Now, I do believe one of the things that I am worried about is the amount of time. You don't build a factory overnight, right? It takes years to get the tooling, just to build the structure itself and then get the tools in. But I think it ends up, I'm hoping that it ends up bringing a balance to the table of these tariffs. I think we've been paying too much in tariffs for too long, and I think it's been lopsided. Um, I do hope that we are smart enough to manage it to where it is not uh, too painful for us. My buddies, I was really upset that my buddy lost out on a great job, lost on just a fantastic project with a fantastic client. I hope that they get this managed because even I'm doing an addition on my house and I see the cost of lumber and I'm like, holy crap, right? This is nuts.
Yeah.
And I know all that comes here from here. That's not getting shipped overseas, right? Um, so, anyways, I'm deeply concerned about the tariffs. I hope that we can manage it in a careful, cautious, smart way that it balances things out and also protects each other's countries.
I think even though it is, detrimental to us, it is kind of working, I would say, because I think the other day TSN, the Taiwanese semiconductors, are now moving into Arizona. I think
Yes.
they're investing
Yes.
like $500 billion, which in my
Yeah.
opinion, I'm like, wow, I thought, we were about to invade. I mean, United States was about to invade Taiwan, but now we're doing some really good business with them. So let's just take a little pivot here and we'll talk about team building. So you've built some amazing
Mhm.
high performing teams over the years when you're dealing with complex, extraordinary projects. How do you build these teams? Like, what qualities do you look for? How do you identify and develop these leaders that are pretty much, just doing amazing with all these complex jobs?
That is a really good question. So I used to go in, and I was for many years, and it's going to sound self-serving, but I would be asked to go in and clean up a job, right? And um, when I was brought into the industry, I was brought in like the folks that raised me in the industry. Um, let's just say the HR department would be uh, on standby constantly, right? The way people talk to each other, and I became that my own fault, screaming, hollering, and we got stuff done, and we did amazing work. But the emotional casualties that were created is pretty terrible. So I used to go into projects and just be a hammer. I figured out through a lot of coaching, training, and things of that nature that to do the kind of look, listen, and feel like I talked about earlier. Don't ever jump to conclusions. Like your emotions will want you to jump to conclusions. Make some notes. Stay curious. Ask a lot of questions. Spend a lot of time with the team. You will fit, or at least for me, the folks that um, are okay with status quo or give you the Heisman, if you will, and don't want feedback or don't want to grow, don't want to change things, they will show themselves very early. Okay, typically they stand out, um, and you have to spend some time with those folks, getting them off board or on board, excuse me, but you have to also understand that I use the sand in the hourglass, right? There's only so much sand in the hourglass, and you have to make a decision as a leader what to do with those folks. And you have to measure that time. And you'll find the folks that are that really want to be there and are excited about being there and pour into those people, right? Um, most of the time when teams are struggling, roles and responsibilities are not clear, schedule is not clear. And when I say clear, we in our industry we use a CPM schedule that is very difficult. Most craft workers don't read it, can't read it, aren't even privy to it. So that's where I work with Elevate, and we make schedules very visual, super simple. You could walk on the job today and say, okay, I know when those foundations in that zone are supposed to be done. Um, we we spend a lot of energy on coaching, and that's one of the things that I've learned from working from other major contractors that have worked on this coaching process and what works and what doesn't. And the best of them have failed several times until they found a program that works. And so what we do is we You have to create relationships. You got to create trust, and you got to hold people accountable. And we set up a program where I will coach a certain amount of folks, typically the leaders of the project team or the business unit. And then we teach those folks to be coaches, and we guide them through coaching and building people up. And so by doing the coaching program, and this is where Debbie really helps us a bunch, is everybody gets a voice, right? It's amazing what you will find from people. We have a person on a project right now that's a project manager, and through one of the coaching conversations found out that they want to be a superintendent. And for me is fantastic because she's a female. We had no idea she wanted to be a superintendent. I'm like, great, what are we doing with that, right? So now we can work to provide her a pathway to being a superintendent. We found another person was really frustrated in their role, and we don't get to just switch around, but they want to go in a different path. So we said, hey, how about if you do these types of things? We've got some training in this, and start dipping your toe in that, right? The great thing about this is when the team starts to win, the energy changes. You're talking about positive stuff. You're able to run into some really hard challenges, and the team, bonds together and gets them done. The other part that really makes it high performing is you're able to talk about things that are just not working and why, right? And constant improvement is what we're driving. And I mean, even myself, we've worked through on another project here over the last 6 months, updating our work schedule every day, updating the progress every day. And we've tried 2 or 3 different softwares, and we finally landed on one that is absolutely amazing, and the team is using it. And so even after 37 years, I got to learn something from my Elevate team, right? So creating that environment that we don't just have to stick with something because it's not working, right? We're no longer in our industry. I've seen like general contractors just being this big blunt object running into things, right? And that doesn't have longevity. It takes a ton of energy. What we're teaching is planning early for success, forcing those roadblocks out early by knowing your schedule, knowing your plan, and it's just a lot better environment for everybody.
I mean, I can imagine. Being at a work site, working for a company that's all over the place, and then your company comes in, gives us some advice, shows us how things are done, and I'm like, wow, okay, my job is a lot better now. And I think having everybody be able to speak their voice, or else you would not have known these people have different, passions and ambitions in this industry. And so, you have a product that you are working with. Can you tell us more about the product? Can you give us the name of it and what it's all about? I know you briefly told me about it, but you can dive deeper.
Yeah. So, safety is really important to us. And, I started out in the concrete industry, and I came across this product. It's called VeriCap. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's just this bright orange rebar cap with a yellow cap on the end of it. This product has been developing over 5 or 6 years. Here's a prototype, right? And I've gotten to know this company. They asked me for their feedback on the cap, and it fits from number 4 bar to a number 11 bar. For those that don't know what that is, it's a major sized shift in number 4 bar is 1/2 inch, right? It stays on. And the important part of this, that if you're not in the construction industry, is that we are required to protect all potential impalements, right? There's a number of photographs, if you go online and you ask about rebar impalements. I've got pictures of where a gentleman has fallen and the rebar went through his thigh, through his stomach all the way up into his jaw. And they
Oh,
had to
wow.
cut the rebar.
I mean, I think if someone can not, get impaled like that, I think it's totally worth the cost because I've heard of construction stories or accidents or mishaps, but nobody really goes into detail. I guess that's why it's pretty gruesome. And I'm glad that that invention is created because I think a lot of people who are in construction can relate to what you're talking about, and they can probably bring it up to their company or to their supervisors of investing in it or even purchasing it. So Mark, we have a small little segment on this channel where I just ask you really quick, fast, like rapid fire type of questions. Are you
Gotcha.
up for it?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So, two-part question, but it's one question. Favorite project you've ever worked on and most challenging project you've ever worked on?
Um, Favorite project was Idaho State Capitol. First job I ever, when I left, I had tears in my eyes. Um, Favorite project, uh, or most challenging project, probably, I got to be careful. It's a confidential client, massive data center, fastest one ever built all at one time for this client here in the United States. Went in, the team was really struggling, and a year or so later, it was absolutely amazing. And I'm really, really proud of that team and that project.
I love hearing success stories. Your go-to leadership mantra or quote?
I studied Jocko Willick a bunch. Okay. I don't know if you know who
Okay.
Jocko is, but I'm going to pull this. I have this hanging at my desk, um,
I love that.
and it says, "No one else is coming.
It's just you.
It's on you to get it done." Right?
I love that. It's kind of like, there's no Superman to save you. Uh, what's your favorite construction tool or piece of equipment?
Uh, I love to see cranes work.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. And final question. If you could work on any iconic project in the world, what would it be?
You know, I've worked on some road construction, but I've never worked on a massive bridge like the Mackinac
Oh,
Bridge or something like that, right? I would love an opportunity to work on something like that.
that would be amazing. Who knows? Sometime in the future.
Yeah.
And so, before we end off, what would you say is the biggest lesson out of your 37 years in construction that has taught you?
Uh, well, like I said, I was raised in an industry where it was like very aggressive, right? And I think all great leaders have things that they're really good at, and they have some weaknesses. Um, I would say listen. Listen to what's happening around you before you speak. That look, listen, and feel thing for me has paid huge dividends when I do it well. I haven't always done it well. I probably will make mistakes, but truly listening to what's being said and what's not being said. Use your ears, kind of close your mouth, open your ears a little bit. Will and do some self-reflection, take some notes, read them, really figure out how to attack a project or a team in the right way, and don't get caught up in all the negative stuff. Right? There's always challenges on every project. They're always going to be there. Just hit them every day head on.
Very well said. I think listening is lost art these days. A lot of people like to talk and not listen, and I think listening can be beneficial to any industry, to any individual. And I think for a lot of people who don't have a resolution, hey, maybe listening can be yours. So,
Yeah.
Mark, we have had some amazing, amazing wisdom and some gems that you have dropped on us, especially in not only the construction world, but also in the world of scaling your business, doing better in your business, especially, a lot of ideas that a lot of people have been thinking about and wondering about. I think you've pretty much answered it, because construction is not an easy industry. It has a lot of moving parts. It's a very logistical industry where anything can happen across the ocean, and it can have some impact on our side of the pond. So thank you so much for that, Mark. Audience, I will have all of Mark's information in the description box. If you are in construction, if you are looking for advice, if you are looking for some type of consultation to making your business or your project a lot better than what it is now, please definitely check them out. So, Mark, is there any last mentions you want to throw out there in the digital world? Where can people find you? Any websites, social media, anything like that?
So I do several podcasts, or have done, with Jason Schroeder with Elevate Construction. We are currently building our website right now. So that'll be up here shortly, but you can reach me at mark@storyccs.com. You can give me a call at 612-968-0257. We're growing fast, and we're excited about what's coming in the next couple of years.
Amazing. And Mark, this is not the only time you're going to be on this channel. We would love to have you on. Anytime we need some construction talks or anything that's happening in your industry, you can give us a heads up, because I think, real estate, the housing crisis, supposedly a recession coming up. So many things are happening. Geopolitics. I mean, where does it end? Every week is like a new thing happening. So I think by having a good, solid, group around you, where you have a good team, you're able to scale, you're very realistic with your planning, I think that goes a long way when it comes to businesses. So audience, please make sure that you check out Mark's not only businesses but also podcasts that he's on. You've already heard the gems that he's dropped, and I'm sure he drops so much more gems outside of my channel. So please make sure you like and you subscribe. And Mark, again, thank you for being here with me today. And so, audience, stay ranting.